This year I have broadened my horizons more than I ever have in my entire life for trying out a lot of new video games. And it's really been worth it because I have played some amazing games this year that I definitely do not regret. I will leave it up to the historians to determine if this is the best year in video games ever, but I had a great time. Now, of course, keep in mind I have not played everything, there's way too much, and I've mostly played the games that I've already reviewed on this channel, so it's kind of just a rank in all of those. But I will try my best, and let's just get right into the rest of the video. Now, number 10 has caused more arguments between my wife and I than any other game this year, and that of course is Diablo 4. Scouring the depths of Diablo 4 with my wife is one of my favorite co-op experiences of all time, and this game has kind of bounced everywhere on this list at some point. Sometimes it was my favorite game that I was playing that year, and sometimes this game was sitting at the depths of hell for just pissing me off. Now, some of the good reasons are the combat is fun, and I've never played a Diablo game, so this is a pretty unique experience for me, and I love trying out some of the new classes, but I mostly stick to the druid myself, and my wife played the sorcerer if you're interested. The campaign for Diablo 4 was pretty great, and I loved all the cutscenes and a lot of the cool characters. There was some excellent voice acting, and all of that was stupendous. But then you have some of the bad parts of Diablo, which is why it's not further on this list, and that is, of course, the terrible monetization practices that are so bad I can't even look at the storefront page. It just pisses me off. And then there's also the just kind of terrible and tedious inventory management. I didn't know it was that bad in these kind of games, and out of a 1-hour play session, I probably spend like 20 minutes just looking through my inventory. I think it's mostly a net positive for this game, which is why it's still on the list, because the highs were so high, but the lows are dastardly sometimes. The seasons have also just been kind of and I'm more just looking forward to what the expansion will offer later next year. Now, there has never been another game this year, or maybe even in all of history, that has scared me and also just relaxed me at the same time more than Dredge. This is definitely my favorite indie game of the year, maybe a spoiler for the rest of the list, but it is just so creepy and addicting to just go fishing in your little boat, and this title is especially relaxing on the old Steam Deck with a cup of joe and I just thoroughly enjoyed moving through this game, progressing my boat, making it just a little bit better, and just learning a little bit about each little island town that you visit, as they're just so kind of cozy. But I've done a full review on this game, and that's also on my channel, and I can link that in the video if you're interested in hearing me talk more about Dredge. Now, number 8 is probably the most colorful and vibrant game on this entire list, and maybe in years, and that is Mario Wonder. This game is absolutely vibrant. Again, I did another review on this game, and it is probably my favorite 2D Mario game in decades. It is so imaginative, and I just love every new level and all the new little wonder flowers and all the little secrets you can find in the overworld and in the regular world. This game was just jaw-dropping at every single moment, and the only reason it's not a little bit higher on this list is because I am not a 2D Mario connoisseur, and that's basically why it's not my favorite of the year, but I can totally see why, if you are, this would be yours. And I think it's really the perfect 2D Mario game, in my opinion, and I can't wait to go back in a couple years and just try it out again, and hopefully I've forgotten enough so this is a completely new experience again. We got 2 Yakuza Like a Dragon RGG Studios games this year, and my personal favorite is number 7, and that is Like a Dragon Gaiden, The Man Who Erased His Name. Now, I absolutely love all of these games, and I just got done doing another video on this, and this one is one of the best of all time, story-wise, and some of the combat is pretty great too. Not my favorite styles, but decent. I think my favorite part about this game, though, is just seeing Joryu/Kiryu again, and trying out the new fun combat styles, and just roaming around Sotenbori again. It was always one of my favorite locations, and it brings up memories of Yakuza 0, which was the second game I played in the Yakuza series. But overall, everything about this game was just pretty amazing, especially the beginning and the end, with a pretty typical but still fun middle section of the game. We are number 6. Oh, goddamn, that hurts. Yeah, so number 6 on the list is, of course, Spider-Man 2, if you could dissect that from that weird number reading. And this is Sony/PlayStation's mega huge blockbuster for the year, and it definitely did not disappoint. this game might be the best looking game of all time, at least on consoles, and for me it ran perfectly from beginning to end. Now I've heard that's not the same for everyone, but for me it was frankly perfect on my PlayStation 5. I love the cool twist to the Spider-Man story, and albeit I'm not a Spidey head, but I really like this game and I can't wait to see what they do with the next game. Some of the later moments in this game are just downright amazing and had me so hyped and on the edge of my seat like pretty much no other game on this list. The set pieces are immaculate, and I kind of just like the weird quadrangle relationship between Miles and Peter and MJ and Harry and just all the other side characters in the game. I do kind of wish that Miles had a little bit more of a spotlight, especially towards the middle of the game. He kind of gets sidelined a bit, but this was kind of more Peter's story, and I can't wait to see more of Miles in Spider-Man 3 because I think that's where this is probably going to go. From swinging around New York City to the Game of Thrones of JRPGs, next for number 5 we got, of course, Final Fantasy 16. Now I think my favorite thing about this game is probably the characters, especially Clive. His character arc through this game is just fantastic, and I just love to see his development from the very beginning to the very end. I absolutely love the spectacle of all the fights, but after a little bit of time, this one has sank in a little bit more, as I did a review earlier this year right off of playing it, and it's kind of dropped a little bit from my initial thoughts. The more I think about it, the last fourth of the game was a little bit, and I really don't like Barnabas the more I think about him as a character or a villain in the series. And the final villain is very okay-ish, and I think he's very overshadowed by some of the earlier villains and boss fights. But regardless, the combat system in this game is just so crazy and broken and flashy, and I absolutely love it. And if there's one thing this game does right, it is that combat system and roaming from one encounter to the next, slashing up some weird old monsters in this weird medieval Final Fantasy style world that frankly only Final Fantasy could have come up with a lot of this shit. With the power of tactics and anime on my side, we got number 4, and that is Fire Emblem Engage. This is one of my favorite games of this year, mostly because I am a massive Fire Emblem fan, so by default it had to be on the list. Now, first, I wasn't really into the art style of this game, and I still think the story is absolutely atrocious, but the new gameplay mechanics in this game are a great breath of fresh air, and I can't wait to see what they decide to keep from this game into the next game. The original characters are a little bit of a mixed bag personally, but I love the old characters from the other games, and it's interesting to see them in all new art styles, which had to grow on me a little bit as I prefer the grittier games. After a while I didn't really care, and I was just getting into the meat and potatoes of this game. This game also has pretty bad replay value in my opinion, and that's kind of a knock on a Fire Emblem game because those games usually are supposed to be the most replayable games of all time for me. But that's really all I got to say about Fire Emblem Engage. The next game on this list is the second biggest surprise for me this year, and that is the shadow dropped number 3 Hi-Fi Rush. Hi-Fi Rush is absolute pure fun and one of the most rewarding combat systems of the entire year. It is so satisfying to hit those rhythm-based notes and do some massive damage and get some crazy amount of points along the way. But I think one of my favorite things is just how fun the characters and the dialogue are between them. They're just so charismatic and I love them. The art style is amazing and the animations are top notch. Even to just the idling animations of Chai just kind of bouncing around, and the backgrounds are so animated as well. It is absolute fun. And the music in this game is absolutely stellar and definitely my most listened to album of the year. Number 2 is, of course, Baldur's Gate 3. This game has probably one of the best stories, definitely the best characters and dialogue, and maybe even some of the best game systems on any game of this list. This game is an absolute feat, and for someone who is not usually even into these kind of games, I was surprised that I even got into it. If you asked me at the very beginning of the year if I was going to play this game, the answer would have been no. But now I realize how dumb it would have been to not play this game. Now there's so many things about Baldur's Gate 3 that I love, but I think my favorite thing is just talking to the characters and getting to know them with some of the best voice acting in the entire industry. And because the world is so engaging, I just want to learn more about it through those characters. For a good portion of the year, this game was my second life, and I just could not stop playing it on my computer. And that's another thing, is I don't typically play games on mouse and keyboard in front of my computer very often. So the fact that this game got me to do that is unfounded. And really, the only knock on this game is just the fact that these kind of games are not my favorite of all time. So while I loved it, just not being into the genre that much and having not played some of the other games in the series, I kind of just think the impact of it is not as great as number one. But that's a little bit unfair to this game because, again, this is probably one of the best games of all time. This, of course, brings us to the last game on our list, and that is number one, which is, of course, Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. This game is definitely my favorite game of the year for a combination of two things that even Baldur's Gate didn't have. One, it's one of the best games of all time, and two, it's in a franchise that I absolutely love and hold near and dear to my heart. One of the best things about Tears of the Kingdom is definitely the exploration. It is top-notch and probably almost unmatched in any game in history. I also love all of the new amazing gameplay systems, and the puzzles were even more engaging this time around compared to Breath of the Wild, as well as the story, which I think is definitely better than Breath of the Wild. Also, in comparison to Breath of the Wild, this game fixed quite a few issues that Breath of the Wild had. The game has amazing side quests and stuff to do around the world as well. I mean, come on, 3 open worlds basically. I know one of them's a little bit smaller than the other two, and one of them's a little bit, darker and more empty. But no matter what, I never got bored of just roaming around the open world, and I also never got bored of just making weird little contraptions and riding around on things that probably shouldn't be able to actually drive around but still work somehow. But really, for me, that's what it takes to become Game of the Year for me and my number one game on this list. But it's not just that it's The Legend of Zelda. I mean, look where Fire Emblem Engage is on this list. It definitely didn't get as high, even though it's in a franchise I actually love more than Zelda. So this game is a true testament of being just an amazing game, as well as something that's just my preferred genre and series. But that's it for this video, and there's definitely a lot of gaps that I have of games that I didn't get around to, and I'll probably get around to them pretty soon now that I have a little bit of extra time to play games. But I also just can't wait to see what 2024 has to offer, because there's some games already early in the year that might even beat out half of the games on this list. Anyways, thanks for watching.